It's time to review this week's episode of My Hero Academia titled Spectre. Was it frightfully good, or did it not stand a ghost of a chance? Ooh, we got Halloween puns right at the start of summer. Just a bit of a warning, I have got the window open, I've got the fan going because we're starting to get into a heat wave here. So if you hear any weird noises, it's because of that. With all that said and done, let us get to the start of this review by talking about the positives. Time to talk about all the things I enjoyed about this episode, and the headline positives for this review is that this was an action-packed episode with some neat action sequences contained within, some touching character moments here and there, but I do feel as though certain elements of it didn't quite hang well together, and certain elements of it weren't quite as well executed as I really think that they should have been. The core action sequence that we get for most of this episode, I think, is well presented and well put together. The animation is strong, not the strongest that we've had this entire run of this series, but I do feel as though it does the job for what is needed of it. I feel that last week the major action sequence that we got was far stronger, but let's be honest, I get the sincere feeling that they had a lot more to work with here. Given where all this was going, given what we've seen in this episode, it's not like they had really much else to go with as far as what they could do for the action sequence was concerned, at least not without padding it out, adding some more filler and then extending this out to a third episode, which I really don't think would have worked. And let's be honest, you would have a lot of people doing their CinemaSins wannabe videos going, "Oh, so how long does it take for a plane to even reach the mainland anyway? Shouldn't Endeavour and the other heroes be here by now to try and take care of Tomura or whoever the fuck?" And yeah, that wasn't the case. This has ended rather abruptly, but we'll discuss that shortly. I do feel as though the events in the manga, this whole sequence of events in the manga was longer, but I think that's purely and simply just due to the nature of how it was transmitted. It would have probably taken maybe 3 or 4 episodes, which is why this kind of feels incredibly abrupt to me, because I will be blunt, and we might as well just address the elephant in the room here, which is that I knew what was going to happen to Star and Stripe well in advance. I've known about it for maybe about a year and a half at least, almost as long as I did that review of Two Heroes, which I will be blunt has really just taken the wind out of my sails as far as the emotive weight of this whole sequence of events is concerned. I'm not going to get into a rant about it, but I will just say here and now, the fact that there are so many people on YouTube, not just within these confines of My Hero Academia, but other commentators, other broadcasters who are perfectly fine with putting spoilers in their thumbnails and in their video titles, just irritates the piss out of me to a way that it genuinely is heartbreaking. Like, I've had to set up a separate YouTube. I've not set up one. I'm using a YouTube account as my casual account that I've had since 2006 just to avoid spoilers for it. Because this main account that I use for uploading videos, pretty much every video that I get recommended is My Hero Academia or Doctor Who related. And you can guess that a lot of them are spoilers, so it's like a minefield just logging in to upload a video most weeks, which, you know, a rant for another time. But yeah, it really did kick the wind out of my sails when it came to this moment. So I can't really discuss it as far as how it impacted me emotionally, but I can at least review it from the point of view of a more mechanical way, which I do apologise for. But hey ho, at least I'll get some use out of my master's degree somehow. But I will say is that it was well done for what it was, and I do appreciate the subversion that we get here. The way that Star and Stripe is introduced into this series, it makes you think that she's going to become a major recurring character. At the very least, that she will have this fight with Tomura and maybe get knocked out or put into a coma and then maybe appear later on. And then maybe she gets killed off, or maybe she survives to the end and she helps truly become the all-might figure for America. That ultimately does not end up happening, and I think that the subversion of that is neat. Though I will say is that I do feel as though the character needed more development to really make the whole sequence of events with her being killed off in the way that she does do a lot more impactful. I think that we could have at least had some shots and some background footage and some just effectively memories of her saving the day in America. I think that really would have been a great and powerful moment had you just seen effectively her inspiring the next generation of hero in the way that All Might did with her. Just have her stopping a bank robbery or stopping a runaway car in that pose like you get on the first issue of the Superman comic from 100 years ago. Just something like that would have been great. Just seeing something like that would have helped make it a lot more emotively painful. I know it sounds like a psychopath because I want people to be hurt, but you get the idea. I think there was something missing here that could have taken this to the next level, but I do think that it's good for what it is. And let's be honest, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be really upset by the fact she's got killed off, affected off for 2 episodes. But let's be honest, this whole storyline isn't done with. I get the feeling we're going to see a little bit more from her coming up, even if that is just in the form of flashback sequences. But I do feel as though what little character development that we do get with her in this episode is good. The stuff that we get towards the start of the episode, I think in the pre-title sequence, is decent for what it is. We see her trying to deal with the realities of living in the shadow of All Might, even though, of course, she's the #1 hero in America with probably the most powerful quirk in existence. But still, she feels that pressure. She feels that desire to try and become better and to be the kind of hero that he is. And she also has to deal with some mild sexism thing that she is briefly touched upon, which her friends say, no, it's not because of that. It's just because, you know, you're just a little bit of a gorilla. You need to sort your ideas out, kid. Ha ha ha, rib, jokey, banter. Which is cute. It's a fun sequence of events. I wish we'd had a little bit more with that. I think that would have been neat. I do have to say, though, that the fact that she used her quirk as a booby trap for Tomura was a neat twist. As I've been mentioning for the last few minutes or so, yes, I knew that Star and Stripe was going to get killed off, but I didn't know that this was going to be an element of it, and I really do like that as an idea. They've got the power that they've always wanted, they've always desired, and it's blowing up in their face, quite literally. I mean, that's just a great twist, I think. I really do like it, and that is something I'll talk about that in just a little bit more detail in just a moment, but I really did like that when all that was kicking off. Like, I knew that this wasn't probably going to end up as bad an ending as I was worried it was going to end up being, but still, just when all that was kicking off, I thought that was great, because it turns out that the Spectre that was mentioned in the title isn't Tomura, it's Star and Stripe, which is a great twist. When we think of spectres, we think of nasty ghosts and ghouls and monsters, but in this case, it isn't some nasty ghost, it's the hero. And of course, Tomura, I think in the episode, does say, "I'm the Spectre now." And it turns out that isn't the case. I really do like that. And the fact that they've overplayed their hand here has meant that they've lost quirks because of it, which I think is a neat idea. And this all lays into this theory that I've had that this whole series could end in a way which is reminiscent of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. A reference that a lot of people out there aren't going to get, especially if you're more of a anime, manga kind of person, but basically at the end of that, Freddy Krueger gets defeated when all the souls of all the kids that he's murdered over the years decide to tear him apart from the inside. And I've had this idea that what if he gets All for One and it empowers all the quirks that are within him and they all rebel against him and start tearing him apart, and we get a little bit of that this week. And I think that's a neat idea. I don't think that's the direction they're ultimately going to go with that, but I like the fact that it was actually visualised this week. I think that would be a neat way this could all end up going, but I don't think it is the way that's going to end up going. But still, I really did enjoy that series of events. Just how All for One, this character that we keep getting told is this genius that always thinks 10 steps ahead of everyone else. Even in the comic section, whenever I call him a tit or an arsehole, people go, "Oh, but you know he's actually secretly a genius, he actually knows what he's doing." Not this week, he didn't. I loved how gnarly and fucked up Tomura looked over the course of this battle. Just how messed up and nasty looking he went as time went by. Yes, it does look as though there was some censorship here and there to diminish just how badly he looked. You know, when you have the jets of energy coming off him in a way that doesn't feel natural, it feels as though they're covering up some of the nastier design choices. You have that moment where he's flying out of the crater where he looks like Tarman from Return of the Living Dead. That was really great moment. I liked that. That was a great creepy image. And of course, we get the image of him towards the end episode where he looks like this twisted bat monster thing, which looked neat, but I do feel as though they could have gone harder with that. They could have really made him look really messed up and nasty. And it does look as though that was the idea with the initial design, given how, you know, not to get graphic, certain parts of him were hanging off, but in the end it seems so decided, yeah, no, let's not. This is a late evening, early evening animation program. Let's not get too grim, which it's a bit of a shame, but, you know, it is what it is. I still think it's well designed, and of course this is one of the things of, well, you should read the manga because it'll probably look better in there. Towards the end of the episode, we are reunited with Midoriya and the rest of the cast for some, oh heck, we're gonna save the day, guys, high-spirited comments, which I will admit I'm not entirely sure that fits in the tone with everything else, and I don't think that certain jokes were translated well in some places. Like, let's be honest, when it comes to watching anything subtitled, you get subtitles put on screen for everything, and I think that a couple jokes just weren't translated full stop. It wasn't in the fact that they weren't translated well. I think it's neat just to see them and to just see them going, okay, we're still going to fight, we're still going to live on, we're still going to save the day in memory of this hero that would have done the same for us. I like that sequence of events. I think that it was just a little bit lacking. I think as well that as a series of events, this whole episode probably could have been done with having been made a little bit darker. I think it needed a little bit more weight, a little bit more of a sinister edge to it, which I would have appreciated, and at least it would have made the thing of we're going to save the day feel a little more inspiring. But at the same time, I've known about this series of events for months now, if not well in a year and a half, so I've come to terms with a lot of this stuff, so it didn't have quite the same impact on me as it would have done. And of course, because of Star and Stripe booby trapping her quirk in the way it has done, it means our heroes have got an extension, which I don't know how to feel about that, but I feel that everything said and done, it's more of a negative than a positive. So with that all said and done, it's time to talk about the negatives, and we'll start off with a minor one in the grand scheme of things, but one that still stood out to me, which was the CGI Skeleton. Like, the animation in this episode has been decent. I don't think it quite lived up to the spectacle of what I'd imagined and what I would hope it would end up being, but I still think it was good for what it was. And towards the end of the episode, where we get to see the remnants of a Star and Stripe fading away, we have that really great shot of the giant skeleton of her looking down on All For One and Tomura. But the problem for me is that it's a very obvious CGI skeleton, and that really doesn't look good. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and I think maybe they're doing it because it looks so uncanny that it helps create something that's even more creepy. But I don't think it works. And at the same time, given the animation quality in this particular episode at the same time, would a hand-drawn skeleton have looked better? I don't know, but it would have at least looked more consistent given everything else. And given the quality of everything else that we've seen, in particular when the Stars and Stripe is fading away and decaying away, I think that it would have been better, it would have been neater had we had it hand-drawn, but again, I'm going to start just going around in circles, so CGI Skeleton is not a win for me. I think the bigger problem I have is this whole thing about the extension. Due to Star and Stripe fighting in the way that she has done, the Americans were able to get enough data on Tomura to process it and come to the conclusion that they have been given extra time to prepare, that Tomura's body is now not ready for this big final confrontation, and that our heroes have more time to prepare, more time to evacuate people, more time to train, more time to try and dismantle these other villain groups that have been popping up. On the one hand, I do appreciate this, as it means that we can take the pressure off everything else towards this series at the moment, because it feels as though it's laser focused on just wrapping itself up, which is something that I'm not a fan of. I think that it's being rushed to completion, but hey ho, that's ultimately the decision of the core author of it. But at the same time, whilst I do appreciate the fact we're getting more time to do some other things and explore some other areas, it does feel as though this whole we're gonna get the extension feels like the writer getting themselves out of a tight spot. It feels as though last season, or the previous few episodes, depending how you want to look at this, they wrote themselves into a corner when they said, oh, we don't actually have 2 months or whatever it was to find and defeat Tomura. We only have a week. Oh, we only have a day. Oh dear. And now, oh, it's okay now. We actually now have a week. Or we now actually have a month, whichever they end up deciding on. I don't like that, because, like I say, it feels as though they're correcting a mistake in the writing, which, in my opinion, shouldn't have been there in the first place, because I think that this series is being rushed to completion. I might well discuss that in this season-long overview in a few weeks' time, or a few months. Not going to be for another 6 months, God the Lord help us all, but still, I am disappointed that it is... Well, I don't know it's disappointing. It just stick out to me, and I don't know how to feel about all of that. And another thing, a slightly minor negative, is also the fact I thought the Star and Stripe thing would be longer than it is. I thought this confrontation between Tomura and Star and Stripe would have gone on for longer than it did do. But at the same time, this arc technically isn't over. I think there is still some more stuff to come down the pipeline with all of this. How exactly that translates itself, I'm not 100% sure. I do know some of the broad strokes, and I just say to anyone listening to this, don't give it away for anyone in the comment section, but still, I'm going to be honest, when it came to this season, I thought, right, the Star and Stripe thing is going to take up the first half of this season, and then the other thing is going to take up the second half. Now, I really don't know. It feels as though we're going to get into the second half of the storyline stuff in a matter of weeks' time. What we do for the second half of this season, I don't know, but I've got a bad feeling that we're just going to end up pivoting into the final action sequence, effectively, because it feels as though the final season and a half is just going to be one elongated action sequence. But we'll soon see about all of that. We've all said that and done. Let us get into the overview and say that I did enjoy this episode quite a lot. Whilst I do think that it could have been better, whilst I do feel as though there's certain areas that it should have been and could have been done better, I do think it could have been darker. I do think as though more could have been done to split up Star and Stripe. I do think that it's an effective episode for what it is. And any issues I have as far as its effectiveness from an emotional level is nothing to do with the episode itself. There's a few things, again, like I've said previously, I think could have been done better, but the major issue with me is due to purely and simply due to the fact that it's been spoiled for me well in advance. I think it's literally a year and a half since it was spoiled for me, and that really does piss me off. I do joke sometimes about the fact I am a magnet for spoilers, but it has been heartbreaking that this is a series I really do like. This is a series that got me interested in anime and manga again after a 15-year break. And the fact that just about every single plot point, every single storyline, every single aspect of this frigging series has been spoilt for me by idiots online really has pissed me off, and it has undermined this. But with all that said and done, let's not talk about idiots. Let's talk about good people out there who have left comments, as it's time for Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner. It's been a few weeks since I've done that, hasn't it, everyone? Anyway, it's time for a comment from Big X1, and they say, "This was a great episode. Star and Stripe is amazing. I'd write more, but I haven't slept. Stayed up early to watch the episode. Thanks Crunchyroll for uploading it late." This, of course, referring to last week, where the release of last week's episode was delayed. Now, thankfully, at least in the UK, it wasn't as delayed as some rumours were making it out to be. Some rumours were making out that it wasn't going to be uploaded at 5:30 in the evening. Turned out it wasn't released until about 12 o'clock in the afternoon, which as I've said previously, I'm not keen on, but that's just the way that things have landed. But in the end of the day, I was able to see it. I was able to see it in time. And yeah, that's just the way of things. I'm happy that you enjoyed the episode, Big X1. It's a shame that you had to stay up early to watch this, but or rather stay up late to watch this. But hey, last week's episode was good. This week's episode was good. Let's hope next week's episode is good as well. I've got another couple videos to review today because Doctor Who decided to release a double bill. So I'm going to have to do a couple episodes for that. But anyway, that's for me to worry about. Anyway, thank you all for listening and see you next time. Goodbye!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!